Microsoft Azure, all you need to learn. In this course, we would be going step by step to understand the fundamentals of Microsoft Azure and how can we use this to get most out of it. We would be looking on creating virtual machines, web app, containers, and much more. So let's dive into it. Microsoft Azure Fundamentals. It is a cloud computing platform with an ever-expanding set of services to help you build solutions to meet your business goals. Azure has simple web services for hosting your business presence in the cloud. Azure also supports running fully virtualized computers, managing your custom software solutions. It provides a wealth of cloud-based services like remote storage, database hosting, and centralized account management. Azure also offers new capabilities like AI, IoT, focus services. What is cloud computing? Cloud computing is the delivery of computing services over the internet. Computing services include common IT infrastructure such as virtual machines, storage, databases, and networking. Cloud services also expand the traditional IT offerings to include things like Internet of Things, machine learning, and AI. Because cloud computing uses the internet to deliver these services, it doesn't have to be constrained by physical infrastructure the same way that a traditional data center is. That means if you need to increase your IT infrastructure rapidly, you don't have to wait to build a new data center. You can use the cloud to rapidly expand your IT footprint. Shared responsibility model. So the very important thing that we come across in cloud computing is this model. Let's start with a traditional corporate data center. The company is responsible for maintaining the physical space, ensuring security, and maintaining or replacing the servers if anything happens. The IT department is responsible for maintaining all the infrastructure and software needed to keep the data center up and running. They are also likely to be responsible for keeping all systems patched and on the correct version. However, with shared responsibility model, these responsibilities get shared between the cloud provider and the consumer. Physical security, power, cooling, and network connectivity are the responsibility of the cloud provider. The consumer isn't collocated with the data center, so it wouldn't make sense for the consumer to have any of those responsibilities. At the same time, the consumer is responsible for the data and information stored in the cloud. You wouldn't want the cloud provider to be able to read your information, though. The consumer is also responsible for access security, meaning you only give access to those who need it. With an on-premises data center, you are responsible for everything. With cloud computing, those responsibilities actually shift. The shared responsibility model is heavily tied into the cloud service types, that is, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. We will dive deeper into this in just a moment. Infrastructure as a service. It places the most responsibility on the consumer, with the cloud provider being responsible for the basics of physical security, power, and connectivity. Whereas software as a service places most of the responsibility with the cloud provider. Platform as a service being a middle ground between IaaS and SaaS rests somewhere in the middle and evenly distributes responsibility between the cloud provider and the consumer. The following diagram highlights how the shared responsibility model informs who is responsible for what, depending on the cloud service type. These light blue boxes actually defines that the responsibility is with cloud provider, or you can say Microsoft. Dark blue actually shows customer. However, this double shaded box actually represents shared responsibility. So you can pause the video right here and try to make some deeper sense that which responsibility would be owned by whom. You will always be responsible for the information and data stored in the cloud, devices that are allowed to connect to your cloud, for example, cell phones, computers, and so on, the accounts and identities of the people, services, and devices within your organization. However, the cloud provider is always responsible for physical data center, physical network, and physical hosts. Your service model will determine responsibility for things like operating systems, network controls, applications, identity, and infrastructure. There are three main cloud models: private, public, and hybrid. Now let's see what they actually mean. A private cloud is in some ways the natural evolution from a corporate data center. It's a cloud delivering IT services over the internet that's used by a single entity. Private cloud provides much greater control for the company and its IT department. However, it also comes with greater cost and fewer of the benefits of a public cloud deployment. Finally, a private cloud may be hosted from your on-site data center. It may also be hosted in a dedicated data center off-site, potentially even by a third party that has dedicated that data center to your company. What is public cloud? It is built, controlled, and maintained by a third-party cloud provider. With a public cloud, anyone that wants to purchase cloud services can access and use resources. The general public availability is a key difference between public and private clouds. Hybrid cloud is a computing environment that uses both public and private clouds in an interconnected environment. A hybrid cloud environment can be used to allow a private cloud to search for increased temporary demand by deploying public cloud resources. Hybrid cloud can be used to provide an extra layer of security. For example, users can flexibly choose which services to keep in public cloud and which to deploy to their private cloud infrastructure. The following table highlights a few key comparative aspects between the cloud models. Again, you can pause the video over here and try to make sense that how we can differentiate between public, private, and hybrid cloud. By keeping in view this comparison, we would be in a better shape to understand that which type of cloud actually fulfills our business requirements. Multi-cloud. In a multi-cloud scenario, you use multiple public cloud providers. Maybe you use different features from different cloud providers, or maybe you started your cloud journey with one provider and are in the process of migrating to a different provider. Regardless, in a multi-cloud environment, you deal with two or more public cloud providers and manage resources and security in both environments. Azure Arc. It is a set of technologies that helps manage your cloud environment. It can help manage your cloud environment, whether it's a public cloud solely on Azure, a private cloud in your data center, a hybrid configuration, or even a multi-cloud environment running on multiple cloud providers at once. Azure VMware solution lets you run your VMware workloads in Azure with seamless integration and scalability. After looking deeply into shared model, we are now looking into consumption-based model. When comparing IT infrastructure models, there are two types of expenses to consider: capital expenditure and operational expenditure. Capital expenditure is typically a one-time upfront expenditure to purchase or secure tangible resources. A new building, repaving the parking lot, building a data center, or buying a company vehicle are examples of capital expenditure. Operational expenditure is spending money on services or products over time. Renting a convention center, leasing a company vehicle, or signing up for cloud services are all examples of operational expenditure. Cloud computing falls under operational expenditure because cloud computing operates on a consumption-based model. With cloud computing, you don't pay for the physical infrastructure, the electricity, the security, or anything else associated with maintaining a data center. Instead, you pay for the IT resources you use. If you don't use any IT resources this month, you don't pay anything for any IT resources. This consumption-based model has many benefits, including no upfront costs, no need to purchase and manage costly infrastructure that users might not use to its fullest potential, ability to pay for more resources when they are needed, ability to stop paying for resources that are no longer needed. In a cloud-based model, you don't have to worry about getting the resources needs just right. If you find that you need more virtual machines, you add more. If the demand drops and you don't need as many virtual machines, you remove machines as needed. Either way, you are only paying for the virtual machines that you use, not the extra capacity that the cloud provider has on hand. Compare cloud pricing models. Cloud computing is the delivery of computing services over the internet by using a pay-as-you-go pricing model. You typically pay only for the cloud services you use, which helps you plan and manage your operating costs, run your infrastructure more efficiently, scale as your business needs change. To put it another way, cloud computing is a way to rent compute power and storage from someone else's data center. You can treat cloud resources like you would resources in your own data center. However, unlike in your own data center, when you are done using cloud resources, you give them back. You are built only for what you use.